You've been trained to survive, to carry the weight without complaint, to be the one who doesn't cry at funerals, who doesn't panic in a crisis, who doesn't need help. But what no one tells you is how loneliness can ferment in silence, how the absence of permission to fall apart becomes a cage so tight it starts to feel like your own skin. You live like you're fine, you smile when you need to, you crack jokes, you function. But somewhere inside you, there's a quiet ache that never leaves. And no one sees it, because you were never allowed to say it out loud. No one asks how you're really doing unless you've already lost everything. No one checks in unless something's visibly broken. That's the price of being born into a world that only applauds your strength. They never told you that strength without softness becomes a prison. They never told you that suppressing pain doesn't make you brave, it just makes you silent. And silence can feel like death in slow motion. You're praised when you endure, but shamed when you express. If you open up, you're too emotional. If you stay closed, you're emotionally unavailable. You don't get to win. You carry your own contradictions, and you're tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep fixes. The kind of tired that comes from pretending every day, pretending you're okay, pretending you don't need anyone. Some nights, when the world gets quiet, your thoughts get loud. That's when the questions creep in, the ones you never say out loud. What's the point of all this? Why do I feel so empty? Why does it feel like I'm losing something I never had to begin with? You're not weak for asking. You're not broken for wondering. You're human, and you've been denied the right to be fully human. You weren't born this way. You were trained. Trained to numb, trained to dismiss your own heart, trained to believe that if you just work hard enough, achieve enough, earn enough, you'll feel like you matter. But the truth is, no amount of achievement can fill the spaces that were carved out by emotional starvation. When love had conditions, when closeness was met with punishment, when vulnerability was mocked. Kierkegaard once wrote that despair is the sickness unto death, not the death of the body, but the death of the self. And that's what you've been dying of, quietly, a slow decay of identity, buried beneath expectations you never asked for. You've lost touch with who you are because you were never given space to find him. Every time you were told to man up, you were told to disappear. Every time you were told to stop crying, you were told your feelings were dangerous. So now you hide from yourself, and you don't even realize it. You try to keep busy, to distract yourself from the silence within. You hustle, you grind, you drown yourself in noise, work, screens, substances, meaningless conversations, because stillness scares you. Stillness forces you to face what you've buried. But it's in that very stillness where healing begins. Because the truth you avoid is the truth that frees you. You are allowed to hurt. You are allowed to need. You are allowed to be more than what they expect. There's a quiet kind of grief that comes from not being seen. And you've been grieving for years, grieving the parts of you that were shamed into silence, grieving the love you never received, grieving the father who never knew how to hold you, grieving the mother who was too busy trying to survive, grieving the boy you once were who just wanted to feel safe. You carry all of that inside, and sometimes it leaks out in ways you don't understand, in anger, in withdrawal, in addictions, in numbing routines. But underneath all that, there's a boy still waiting to be held, still waiting to be told it's okay, still waiting for someone to look him in the eye and say, "You don't have to carry this alone. You've waited so long for someone else to say it, maybe now it's time for you to say it to yourself, that the pain is real, that your story matters, that healing isn't weakness, it's courage. You think you're the only one, but you're not. There are millions of men quietly collapsing under the same weight, men who feel ashamed for needing connection, men who've confused stoicism with suppression, men who are suffering in silence because the world told them their worth is measured in how well they hide their scars. But what if the truth is the opposite? What if real strength looks like softness? What if bravery means choosing to feel, even when it hurts? You don't have to be a warrior all the time. You're allowed to be tired. You're allowed to rest. You're allowed to admit that carrying everything by yourself is breaking you. You were never meant to do this alone. And yet, you've convinced yourself that needing help is failure. It's not. It's the beginning of freedom. Kierkegaard believed that despair is not just suffering, it's the refusal to be oneself. And in a world that tells you to be everything but yourself, choosing authenticity is an act of rebellion. You've spent your life trying to be enough. But enough for who? And at what cost? Every time you silence yourself to be accepted, you abandon yourself a little more. And eventually you forget what your own voice sounds like, but it's still there, under the debris of expectations and shame, waiting to be heard. You don't need to become someone new, you just need to return to the person you were before the world told you who to be. This crisis isn't loud, it doesn't make headlines, it's not always visible, but it's everywhere. In the quiet suicides, in the hollow eyes, in the "I'm fine," said with a broken smile, in the marriages falling apart because no one knows how to talk, in the sons growing up to repeat the same silence. It's a crisis that begins in the soul and ends in the grave if no one interrupts it. Let this be your interruption. You may have never been taught how to feel, but you can learn. You may have never been held with tenderness, but you can hold yourself now. You may have been told to be a man, but no one told you that being a man also means being human. You don't need to prove your worth through pain. You are not a machine. You are not disposable. You are not weak for needing warmth. If you've ever felt like your sadness had no place in the world, you're not alone. If you've ever swallowed your pain because you thought no one would understand, you're not alone. If you've ever questioned whether life would be easier if you just disappeared, you're not alone. And I need you to hear this. Your life matters. Not because of what you produce, not because of how strong you appear, but because you exist, and your existence is enough. The world has failed you in many ways, but you don't have to keep failing yourself. You can begin again. You can reach out. You can let someone in. You can speak the truth, even if your voice trembles. You can feel the sadness and still choose life. You can be broken and still be beautiful. You can carry pain and still be worthy of love. You can rewrite the script, and this time, it can be honest. You don't need to hide anymore. Not from the world, not from yourself. You don't need to pretend you're invincible. You just need to be real. You need to feel. You need to allow your heart to soften after years of being armored. Because beneath the silence, beneath the ache, beneath the fear, is a man who deserves peace. A man who is learning to be whole again. A man who is not alone. And maybe, just maybe, the most radical thing you can do is stay. Stay even when it hurts. Stay even when it's hard. Stay because the world needs you, not as a role, not as a protector, but as a person, a soul, a heart, a voice, one that finally gets to be heard.